Welcome back. You are listening to the home of forbidden romances. Prepare yourself, because tonight's story will leave you breathless. 5 years of silence shattered in a single heartbeat, the moment his eyes locked onto mine across the crowded ballroom. The air in the grand hall didn't just shift, it evaporated, sucked into the vacuum of a presence I had spent half a decade running from. Champagne flutes clinked, a string quartet played something inconsequential, and the heavy scent of expensive perfume hung in the air, but all I could smell was him. That terrifying, intoxicating blend of ozone, rain, and cold steel. Julian Vane, the man who had once owned my heart, chewed it up, and spat it out on the altar of his family's legacy, was walking straight toward me. Panic, sharp and acrid, clawed at my throat, but I couldn't move. I was rooted to the spot, my hand tightening instinctively around the small, warm fingers of the 4-year-old boy hiding behind my leg. "Papa," a small voice whispered, trembling. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because the predator had found his prey, and this time, there was nowhere left to run. The hierarchy of the city of Oakhaven was built on blood and pheromones. At the top sat the Vane family, a dynasty of alphas who treated the city like a chessboard and its people like pawns. 5 years ago, I had been the naive Omega scholar who thought love could transcend that hierarchy. I was the anomaly in Julian Vane's perfectly calculated life, a variable his father demanded he remove. And he did, ruthlessly. Now, standing in the center of the Vane Enterprises charity gala, I felt like a ghost crashing his own funeral. I wasn't supposed to be here. I was supposed to be in a flat in the lower districts, safe in anonymity. But my work as an archivist had drawn the attention of the museum board, and attendance was mandatory. Julian stopped 3 feet away. He hadn't aged a day, though the lines around his eyes were sharper, his jaw set harder. He wore a charcoal 3-piece suit that cost more than my education, tailored to accentuate the broad, powerful shoulders of a prime alpha. His eyes, the color of stormy seas, raked over me with a hunger that made my knees weak. "Elias," he breathed. The sound of my name in his baritone voice sent a shiver down my spine that I resented. "Mr. Vane," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. I adjusted my glasses, a barrier between us. "It's been a long time. 5 years, 3 months, and 12 days, he recited, his gaze intense enough to strip the soul from my body. He took a step closer, his pheromones flaring, a command for submission that my biology wanted to obey, but my mind fought with tooth and nail. "You disappeared. I tore this city apart looking for you." "I didn't want to be found," I said coldly. And usually, when someone leaves a key on the counter and changes their number, the message is clear. It wasn't clear to me. His voice dropped, a dangerous growl underlying the civility. "You left without a word. Without a fight. I left because you were engaging to another," I hissed, keeping my voice low so the surrounding socialites wouldn't overhear. "I left because you chose your inheritance over me." "I fixed it," Julian said, his eyes wild. "I broke the engagement. I dismantled my father's board. I took the throne, Elias. I did it for us. But by the time I came back to the apartment, you were gone." Pain, old and dull, throbbed in my chest. He had done all that. It didn't matter. Too much time had passed. Too many secrets lay between us. "It's too late, Julian. It is never too late." He reached out, his hand hovering near my face. Suddenly, the small boy behind me peeked out. He had messy dark curls and eyes that were shockingly, undeniably blue, the exact shade of the ocean in a storm. Julian froze. His hand dropped. He looked at the boy, then back at me. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and ghostly. "Elias," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Who is that?" Before I could answer, a strong arm wrapped around my waist. The scent of sandalwood and warm spice, comforting, safe, and distinctly alpha, enveloped me. "Is there a problem here, Mr. Vane?" Cale stood beside me, towering and broad. He wasn't aristocratically beautiful like Julian. He was rugged, scarred, and built like a fortress. He pulled me flush against his side, his hand resting possessively on my hip. Julian's gaze snapped to Cale's hand, then to the boy who was now reaching up to grab Cale's pant leg. "Daddy, I want to go home," the boy whined softly. The word daddy hit Julian like a physical blow. I saw the light inside him fracture. The arrogant CEO, the untouchable king of Oakhaven, looked as if he had been gutted. "Daddy," Julian repeated, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. He looked at me, betrayal warring with devastation in his eyes. You're married." I lifted my chin, leaning into Cale's touch. "Yes. I have a family now, Julian. Please, leave us alone." We turned and walked away, leaving the most powerful man in the city standing amidst the glitter and gold, looking utterly destroyed. The drive home was silent. Cale drove with one hand on the wheel, his eyes scanning the rearview mirror constantly. He wasn't just my partner. He was former special ops, a man who had saved me when I was pregnant, homeless, and terrified. "He knows," Cale said quietly, breaking the silence as we pulled up to our modest townhouse in the suburbs. "He thinks Leo is yours," I murmured, looking at my son sleeping in the car seat. Leo, Julian's son. The resemblance was getting harder to hide every day. "He's smart, El. He's going to do the math. The kid has his eyes." Cale turned off the engine and turned to me. "We need to leave. Tonight." "I can't keep running, Cale. I have a tenure track at the university. Leo has school. Elias, that man is a prime alpha with obsession issues. He didn't just look at you back there. He looked at you like he was starving. And now that he thinks you belong to another alpha, he's going to burn the world down." Cale was right, but I was tired of running. "Let him try," I said, though my hands were shaking. I'm not the weak boy he discarded anymore. We went inside, the illusion of safety settling over us like a fragile blanket. But safety, when it concerns men like Julian Vane, is always an illusion. 2 hours later, after Leo was tucked into bed and Cale was in the shower, the front door buzzer rang. It was 11 p.m. No one visits at 11 p.m. I checked the security feed. It was empty. A glitch? Or a hack? I moved to the door, hesitation warring with curiosity. I didn't open it. "Who is it? Open the door, Elias." The voice came through the wood, muffled but unmistakable. "Go away, Julian. I'll call the police. The police work for me. Open the door, or I will take it off its hinges." He wasn't bluffing. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door a crack, keeping the chain engaged. Julian stood on the porch. It had started to rain, a torrential downpour that soaked his expensive suit, plastering his hair to his forehead. He looked manic, his chest heaving, his pheromones rolling off him in waves of distressed, aggressive ozone. "You have a husband," he said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. "Yes." "And a child." "Yes." He slammed his hand against the doorframe, the wood groaning under the impact. "How? How could you? You swore. That last night. You swore I was the only one. That was 5 years ago." I shouted back, the anger finally boiling over. "You left me to rot in that apartment while you played politics with your father. You think I was going to wait forever? I moved on. I found someone who puts me first." "Does he love you?" Julian demanded, his eyes wet with rain and tears. "Does he know how you whimper when you're touched behind the ear? Does he know you hate coffee, but drink it to look professional? Does he know your soul, Elias? Because I do. I still feel you. Every damn day. Go home, Julian. You're drunk." "I am stone cold sober," he snarled. "I want you back. I am not a possession you can just reclaim. I don't care. I'll buy him off. I'll destroy him. Name his price. He's not for sale, and neither am I." I tried to slam the door, but he jammed his boot in the gap. "Let me in," he begged, the aggression suddenly bleeding out, replaced by a pathetic desperation. "Just let me see you. Let me smell you. Please. Elias, I am dying without you. Get out." Suddenly, a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. Cale was there, a towel around his waist, looking every bit the dominant alpha protector. "He asked you to leave," Cale said, his voice a low rumble. Julian looked at Cale, and for a second, I thought there would be murder. The air crackled with the pressure of two dominant alphas clashing. "You stole him," Julian spat at Cale. "I saved him," Cale corrected calmly. "While you were busy building your empire, I was picking up the pieces you shattered." Julian flinched. He looked at me, searching for a denial, but found none. Slowly, he pulled his foot back. "This isn't over," Julian whispered. "You belong to me, Elias. Fate bonded us. You can play house with this. Substitute. All you want. But you know where your home is." He turned and walked into the rain, a king exiled from his own heart. The next week was a nightmare of psychological warfare. It started with flowers. Not bouquets, but entire greenhouses worth of white lilies, my favorite, delivered to the university. Then, the donations. The museum where I worked received an anonymous endowment large enough to fund us for a century, with the stipulation that I oversee the archive personally. Julian wasn't attacking. He was courting. Aggressively. But the city of Oakhaven had wolves hungrier than Julian. His sudden erratic behavior, his focus shifting from the corporation to a mystery Omega, signaled weakness to his enemies. The board of directors, the ones Julian had subdued but not eliminated, saw an opening. I was leaving the university late one evening, the sky a bruised purple. Cale was running late to pick me up, a flat tire, he had texted. I decided to walk to the nearby metro station. A black van screeched onto the sidewalk, cutting me off. Before I could scream, the side door slid open. Two betas in tactical gear lunged out. I fought. Elbows, knees, biting, but a cloth soaked in chloroform was pressed over my mouth. The world spun. The last thing I saw was the gray pavement rising to meet me. I woke up zip-tied to a chair in an abandoned warehouse. The smell of rust and old oil was overpowering. Sitting opposite me was a man I recognized from the papers. Marcus Vane, Julian's uncle. The man Julian had ousted to take power. Pity, Marcus said, lighting a cigarette. You really are quite beautiful. I can see why the boy lost his head. What do you want? I rasped, my head pounding. Julian has become unstable, distracted. He refuses to marry the heiress we selected. He's obsessed with a ghost. I'm simply going to use the ghost to lure him into a trap, and then exorcise it. He held up a phone. Smile, Elias. You're on video call. The screen lit up. Julian's face appeared, frantic, in the back of a moving car. Elias, Julian screamed. Hello, nephew. Marcus smirked. Come alone to the shipyard. Pier 4. Or the Omega bleeds. If you touch him, Julian's voice dropped to a terrifying, demonic register. I will flay the skin from your bones. You have 20 minutes. Marcus ended the call. 19 minutes later, the warehouse doors exploded inward. It wasn't a stealth entry. A black SUV rammed through the corrugated metal, crashing into a stack of crates. Gunfire erupted immediately. Julian leaped from the driver's seat, a handgun in one hand, his suit jacket gone, sleeves rolled up. He moved like a blur of violence, shooting two guards with precise, lethal accuracy. Kill him, Marcus shrieked, ducking behind a pillar. A guard aimed his rifle at me. No. Julian threw himself across the open space, not firing, but diving. He shielded my body with his own, just as the rifle cracked. Julian jerked violently, a grunt of pain tearing from his throat. Julian, I screamed. The sound of shattering glass from the skylights above cut through the chaos. Rappelling lines dropped. Cale and a team of private contractors descended, weapons blazing. Cale had called in his own favors. The firefight lasted seconds. Marcus's mercenaries were overwhelmed by Cale's tactical team. Marcus himself was tackled to the ground by Cale, who looked ready to snap the older man's neck. But I only had eyes for Julian. He had slumped to the floor, his head resting on my knees. Blood was blooming rapidly across the white shirt on his back. Julian, oh God, Julian, I sobbed, struggling against the zip ties. Hold on, he wheezed, his hands shaking and bloodied, reaching up to fumble with the knots at my wrists. He didn't care about his wound. He was only focused on freeing me. Did they hurt you? You idiot. You got shot. I'm fine, he lied, finally cutting the tie with a pocket knife he pulled from his belt. As soon as my hands were free, I pressed them against his wound, trying to staunch the flow. Why did you come alone? It was a trap. I couldn't risk them hurting you while I waited for backup, he whispered, his eyes fluttering shut. I lost you once. I couldn't lose you again. Stay with me, Julian. Cale, get the medic. The hospital waiting room was sterile and cold. Cale sat beside me, handing me a cup of lukewarm coffee. He's out of surgery, Cale said. He'll live. The bullet missed the spine. I let out a breath I had been holding for 4 hours. He loves you, Elle, Cale said softly. Stupidly, recklessly. But he loves you. I looked at Cale. And us. Cale smiled, a sad, brotherly smile. You know the deal, Elias. I love you, and I love Leo. But I'm not his father, and I'm not your mate. We helped each other survive. But maybe survival isn't enough anymore. He was giving me permission. Permission to break the charade. I stood up and walked to the recovery room. Julian was pale, hooked up to monitors. He looked smaller without his armor of suits and arrogance. His eyes opened as I entered. "You're safe," he rasped. "Thanks to you." I pulled a chair close. "And Kale." Julian's face hardened slightly at the name. "Is your husband picking you up?" I looked him deep in the eyes. It was time. "He's not my husband, Julian." Julian blinked, the drugs making him slow. "What? Kale isn't my husband. We never married. We aren't lovers. He's my best friend. He took me in when I had nowhere to go." Hope, raw and blinding, flared in Julian's eyes. "But the boy," he called him Daddy. "Leo calls him Daddy because Kale is the only father figure he's ever known," I said, my voice trembling. "Because his real father wasn't there." I reached into my bag and pulled out a photo of Leo. I held it up. "Look at him, Julian. Really look at him." Julian stared at the photo. He traced the dark curls, the shape of the nose, and those distinct, stormy blue eyes. His breath hitched. The monitor's heart rate spiked. 5 years ago, I whispered. "I didn't just leave because I was heartbroken. I left because I was pregnant. And your father threatened to take the baby away if I didn't disappear." Julian began to weep. Silent, racking sobs that shook the bed. He looked at the photo, then at me, horror and wonder mixing on his face. He's mine. He's ours." Julian tried to sit up, groaning in pain, but he forced himself to move. He grabbed my hand, bringing it to his lips, burying his face in my palm. "I have a son," he sobbed. "I have a son, and I missed everything. I missed his first steps. I missed his first word." "You did. I am so sorry," he begged, kissing my knuckles, my wrist, desperate for contact. "Elias, please. I will spend the rest of my life making up for it. I will burn the company to the ground if you want. I will kneel for you. I will crawl. Just don't take him away again. Don't take you away." He looked up at me, the powerful alpha reduced to a man terrified of his own sins. "I can't just forgive you, Julian. You hurt me. Deeply. I know. But," I brushed a strand of hair from his sweat-slicked forehead. "Leo wants to know who his real father is. And, despite everything, my wolf still calls for you." Julian closed his eyes, leaning into my touch as if it were the only thing anchoring him to the earth. "I will earn it back," he vowed. "Every second, every tear. I will earn you back." It wouldn't be easy. The trust was fractured, the years lost forever. But as I watched the rise and fall of his chest, knowing he had taken a bullet for me without hesitation, I knew the ice was finally beginning to thaw. The king of Oakhaven had fallen, but perhaps, in the ruins, a father and a partner could rise. And that is how the tyrant learned to kneel. If you enjoyed seeing the mighty Julian vain humbled by love and regret, destroy that like button. And tell me in the comments, would you forgive a man who chose power over you, even if he risked his life to save you later? I'll be reading your answers. Subscribe for the next chapter. Until then, prompt image. Prompt. Masterpiece, best quality, high-res, 1.2. Korean manhwa style, semi-realistic, digital art, 2 men, BL, Yaoi, man 1. Julian, alpha, wounded, wearing unbuttoned bloody white shirt, sitting on hospital bed, handsome but pale, tears streaming down face, desperate expression, holding man 2's hand against his cheek. Man 2, Elias, Omega, wearing beige trench coat and glasses, standing beside bed, looking down with conflicted expression, soft lighting. Background is sterile hospital. Room, heart monitor, rain against window, cinematic emotional atmosphere, sharp focus, intricate details.